Welcome to the Designing Hollywood podcast in association with the John Campea Show. I am your host, Robert Meyer Burnett. The Designing Hollywood podcast show is dedicated to all things movies, the movie industry, and its talented professionals. From directors, producers, writers, cinematographers, and of course, costume designers. Designing Hollywood covers some of the most celebrated professionals in the motion picture industry. The show explores the artistry, the craftsmanship, and the stories that bring our favorite motion pictures to life.
Hi, I'm Gilbert Musali, the new president and CEO of Western Costume, welcoming Designing Hollywood back to Western. This is our men's tailor shop, where we're custom making clothes all the time, alterations. This is our women's custom made. We can make anything you guys need us to make, alter anything. We can deck out a full army if you want in our military department. Thank you, Designing Hollywood, for coming in to see Western Costume. Hope to see you soon.
Today, we're honored to sit down once again with one of the most celebrated makeup designers in the film industry, James Mowat. Born in Montreal to British parents, Donald has crafted unforgettable characters and worlds through his artistry. His work has elevated some of the most iconic films of our time, including Dune 1 and 2, Blade Runner 2049, Skyfall, Sicario, and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Over his remarkable career, he has earned a Primetime Emmy Award, multiple Saturn Awards, 2 Makeup Artists and Hairstylists Guild Awards, and countless nominations, including Oscar and BAFTA recognition. Beyond the accolades, Donald is deeply committed to mentorship in the industry advocacy for his service on the Academy's committees to outreach with BAFTA Los Angeles and his appointment to the Order of Canada. From designing futuristic worlds to gritty realism, Donald Mowat has defined the visual storytelling of modern cinema. We are thrilled to once again dive into his creative process, career journey, and upcoming projects. Donald, welcome to the Designing Hollywood show yet again.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the introduction.
You know, every time I'm going to talk to you, I go back and dig into your career. And one of your very first jobs, you worked on one of the greatest makeup effects films of all time, The Fly. David Cronenberg. I know you're from Montreal and you have a lot of connection to Canada, but one of my favorite filmmakers of all time is David Cronenberg. And that movie, The Fly came out in 86, and that was only 5 years after the Academy finally recognized, well, first it was makeup effects at the Academy Awards, which was 1981 for American Werewolf in London. They had finally given makeup or makeup effects the first Academy Award that it ever received. And then going on, I look at your career, and as I call myself an imagination connoisseur, you worked on so many of my favorite things. You worked on If Looks Could Kill.
How about that?
With Richard Grieco. I was working at Warner Brothers in 91 when they made that, and you look younger than me. That's amazing. But If Looks Could Kill, I just go back and I look at everything that you've done, and it's amazing. But once again, just quickly, how did you find yourself getting into makeup effects work in the first place?
I think, to be honest, I just want to acknowledge that I was I know you'll find this hard to believe, a slightly odd, eccentric kid. I grew up in Montreal and I didn't play hockey. I wanted to go to ballet. That was me. So cut to, I love theater. I love, belonging to drama clubs and things, going to school. My poor parents, what were they going to do with me? And here I was, but the kids cut school in
right.
grade 6 to see Grease. And I thought, that's so stupid. I went to see Barry Lyndon. And I was obsessed with the way, not only the film, I was 12 years old. That alone should just sum it up.
One of the greatest movies ever made, though.
Thank you.
Still.
But the costumes, the makeup, all of it caught my eye, and I started looking at the names. And one thing, as I got a bit older and there was a lot of sort of peer pressure, makeup, I saw Exorcist, great monster movies, great effects movies, just regular period films. I was fascinated with recreation of the looks.
Right.
And I was hooked. And then I started seeing the names. And the names of makeup were men. So all the people that were calling me a sissy and kind of very bullied kid suddenly I'm like, well, I don't know about that, because look at this movie, and saw these great names, Wes Morris, Ben Nye, the great American and British artists out there, French, Italian, were all men. And I thought, well, I'm not such a sissy really, because, so it was a great defense mechanism for me, and actually a guide. It was sort of, without knowing them, gave me a lot of direction and purpose.
Yeah, well, you've done, and it carries through, because you think about Barry Lyndon, there's a lot of makeup looks in that film.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things. It's funny, I just watched that last week, and Kubrick's one of my favorite directors, but that film in particular was recently released in a 4K disc by Criterion.
Yeah.
The photography in that film is just, they used that lens that was made for satellites, and they were shooting in natural candlelight.
Correct.
Unbelievable. But I love all the different looks. I mean, I don't know if I would have liked to have lived back then, having to put on all that.
So.
I don't think so. It would have been a fun time, one place to be. But I can understand how that film in particular could be influential for you. But I think where you're at now is really interesting, because you've worked on so many different, obviously you've worked directly with actors, Jake Gyllenhaal, Mark Wahlberg, Daniel Craig. And I think it's really interesting that you work with individual people. As a makeup artist, tell us about, how do you work with an individual like Daniel Craig on multiple movies, or Jake Gyllenhaal, when they have to have different looks, and knowing a person's face so intimately? How does that work from role to role and part to part? And how do you work with an actor like that? I don't know much about, does an actor talk to you and say, okay, I feel like I'm a little beleaguered in this movie. How do you begin when you're coming up with a new look for someone's face?
Well, I think, the difference of being the HOD or the makeup designer, as opposed to being the personal artist, or a star request, people still call it.
What was that, star request?
That was the old term. I kind of like that more than personal, which sounds really odd.
Sure.
I actually prefer being the department head, because one, I'm a control freak, and I'm fastidious, and I'm very particular and accurate about things. Being a personal, you lose a little bit of that, because but the great thing about being attached to one actor, or an actor, even Jared Leto, for instance, who I absolutely love working with.
And you work with him on the little things as well.
Yeah, and it was a great character we created together. He's really, what I love about working with, and Jake as well, but I think particularly Jared Leto, was he produces, he stars in it. He invited me to Tron. Little Things was sort of, I was being hired on the film, and when I heard it was him, I was very excited to get to work with him again.
Now, I've heard that Jared Leto was one of the people that got this movie made in the first place. If it wasn't for his involvement, it might not have gotten off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And without knowing all the ins and outs, but just having worked with him before, he was terribly dedicated to it. The overall look, the hiring of some key people on the film, myself included, so I'm forever thankful. But I think he, to me, represents, he'll hate me saying old-fashioned, but a kind of very traditional way of actors who are involved in every aspect. He's not a sort of fake producer, if you will, people who put their name to it, but they're not actually there when he says, how's this going for you? What about the looks? Jake was very much the same way.
Yes, I can imagine. It's funny, Jared Leto, I don't know if you've ever seen this. I don't think you worked on it, but he was in a film called Mr. Nobody.
Yeah.
It's one of the great science fiction movies that no one's ever heard of.
Right.
Incredible film where he has multiple age makeups on him. Real Dick Smith, big man does with the 110-year-old makeup. But yeah, I would imagine, is he the kind of actor that embraces? Does he want to mess up his face whenever he can?
Well, he does, but I think a turning point for him was something like Tron ARES, because it's a bit more, stylized looking what we did to him, but it's still a look, and it's still it's very, I know we didn't want it to look too AI, as in the great film AI.
Right, because he's not a human.
Exactly. And I think we had to work very carefully at making something kind of quite beautiful. But for me, it was Ingrid, the sentient thing, Ingrid. Anyway, I can't say more than that. But I think with Jared, doing the little things was a great experiment because Blade Runner, I gave him those great eyes and he let me get the contact lenses designed. And then he insisted we put 2 pairs, which you're not really supposed to piggyback them.
Right.
A big scleral lens, but to be completely blind. I thought it was fabulous.
Yeah.
And then the little things with the nose and acne. I mean, very few people are willing to look that bad, but still that good.
Right.
And I took great pride in that for being able to transform him without, with the beard, with the hair, you can actually work around it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love the fact, again, you've developed this relationship. Blade Runner 2049, again, Denis Villeneuve, you worked on Sicario, which is celebrating its 10-year anniversary this year.
Fabulous film.
That film, Blade Runner 2049, I think is, again, one of the great, some people say it's even better than the original Blade Runner. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's a phenomenal film. And Neander Wallace, his character, Jared Leto's character in that, was very ethereal and kind of dreamlike and, like you said, blind. And was that the first film you two worked on together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he came in later in the film. I think there was a number of different casting options. But when I started working with him, I was in Budapest, he was in LA, trying to figure out some things to try. It was very difficult, with the distance. But he was just incredibly, I think he's inspiring to work with.
Right.
And we don't see a lot of that. At least I don't these days, because everybody's sort of connected to a brand or connected to something. So it was very nice.
When you are working with somebody and you're working on a Blade Runner or you're working on a Dune, do you use digital tools to play around with people's faces before you ever get to set with them at all?
I'm not that clever. I'm of a generation. I'm a little bit ashamed to say that I still write everything down. I take notes. I mean, my father taught me to write everything down so he'll remember them. And to this day, Blade Runner, every makeup change I had written down on sort of a cheat sheet in the trailer. So I could look and go, scene 52, bloody. Right. Scene 22, but I think there's a comfort in that because I'm not a tech guy at all.
Right.
Jared certainly is. A lot of my team, makeup effects artists particularly, they thrive on that. I think it's incredible. But here's what I learned. When push comes to shove and there's a reshoot or you've got to pick up a scene and somebody says, I have it written down. And if there's a power cut or somebody loses something. So I'm a little bit, and I learned that on David O. Russell's movie, The Fighter, because we did some pickups. And I remember everyone going, where's the digital book? And I thought, oh my God, they'll never find it. And until you've gone, say, to a Marvel warehouse or Warner Brothers to look for all the assets, which happened to me on Moon Knight, it's happened to me on, Tron. Guess who had the book? Including Dune Part 1 with the reshoots, additional photography, which we had to have it. And I had it all written down because we were looking in warehouses.
In Dune, one of the things I loved was the Harkonnens, the whiteness of their skin, for instance.
Yeah.
Like, that could be too much. But it wasn't too much. Like the Beast Raban, when Dave Bautista, that whatever pallor you gave that, it was awesome. Like, it wasn't too much, it wasn't too little, and it looked natural because obviously they have a different color sun, so they wouldn't have the same kind of, they don't tan the way we tan.
Right.
How do you go about, like, is there a lot of testing involved? Is it an instinct with you? Like, when you're going to stop and go, okay, we need to, these people are from Gedi Prime, they have a different sun, they have to look different. Do you just go by instinct? Like, how do you decide on the color and how much testing and what do you have to do?
There was extensive prep on my part, but also, you start to think, I base everything, a lot of things actually I base in fashion, which people are surprised to hear, but it's sort of the truth. But also for me, that was Mephisto. That was like German cinema.
Right. Okay. And, which I saw that movie when it first came out. I know exactly
Klaus
what you
Maria
mean.
Brandauer.
Yeah.
I always thought of something about Dave Bautista, who is, for me, was one of my favorite makeups in the whole movie, because it's organic enough that I know I can show. I only showed Denis what I know he'll like.
Mephisto. Now I'm like, I get it. Of course, that's what you thought.
Yeah.
Wow.
Minus,
Yeah, of course.
But one thing I learned with Denis, and I think I have that in me, is just because you look at a picture of Alexander McQueen's fashions with these great lips painted on. No, I'm not going to do that. Don't relax everybody.
Right.
But that goes back to Nightcrawler with Jake. I mean, the first test we did, I think they were just having kittens when they saw Jake kind of hollowed out and sort of yellowish skin and dark under his eyes, like he hadn't slept for days. I'm like, just relax. You always have to start somewhere. And that was a great thing with Denier, certainly working with different people that the actor will trust, like Josh Brolin, which Sicario, we did makeup tests, and I said to Roger Deakins, who, look at me dropping all these names.
Well, but you work with him.
The best, and just great friends, and Roger and James and the whole team, of saying, how about we do a makeup test with no makeup on Josh Brolin? How about that? And everybody kind of went, this guy is like, and they went for it. And so when we saw the camera tests of Emily and Benicio and Josh, I realized that's when you see what you should be doing.
Right.
Instead of these sort of, and I think that happened obviously with Dave Bautista. Pretty much everything you see on is what we did, or I did in the test or in renderings, which is why I don't rely too much on Photoshop, because it's a little bit like buying a shirt on Amazon.
Right.
I hate to say it, but makeup is, you can do it with costume a little bit more. Hair doesn't work. Makeup doesn't work. And I guess that's maybe, I'm not anti-technology and I embrace it now, but I think the old-fashioned, makeup's been around for thousands of years. The other stuff hasn't.
Right. And also you have to go with your gut. You have to know color. You have to understand pigments. You have to understand which makeup works for which skin.
Yeah, correct. Especially you're talking about Harkonnen is having a look that's painted on, and it's all grease. It's not airbrush makeup. So it feels like it's really applied as makeup.
Yeah.
But not everyone can get with that program of looking. Occasionally I'd see the background and I'd be coming out of the trailer having just got Dave ready, or other actors, a lot of actors, and see background suddenly looking like they're in Star Trek. Great makeup in Star Trek.
Mike Westmore,
But we're not doing that. I don't want that spackled kind of painted look of an alien. These are still...
It has to look natural.
Natural based in reality.
Yes. And that's, my favorite word is verisimilitude, the quality of being real. That film, I don't think there's ever been a fantasy or science fiction film that looks more real than the two Dune movies look. Everything in it you believe. In Dune 2, when Austin Butler as Fade Routha is fighting, I guess they shot with infrared light. Okay. When you have to do makeup now under infrared light, what did you have to do with that? Like, how do you...
Well, everything changed because the color of the costume, everything changed. And that was kind of a last minute thing and put a lot of pressure. And anyway, it's just, the technology of that. And it's very interesting and it works beautifully, but it does change. Everything you see has been sort of somehow altered optically. But the makeup, I never changed his base color.
Wow.
I was determined that, we're just not doing that. And, but I think that, I think it's like anything. You have to go, as you said, with your instincts, and certain things work, certain things don't.
Right.
It's like putting that, I don't know, from the first one, putting just that a little bit too much is a mistake. And you have to, simple is, I don't know who said it, but they were so right. Simple is really hard.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
You lived through the transition really between photochemical, capturing on film, and then moving into the digital realm. And I've heard, because I've talked to a lot of costume designers that had to really relearn things about how does fabric look in the digital world, because you can't have aliasing if you have too much of a pinstripe or something. Was the transition from photochemical to digital capture, was it difficult? Did you have to make some changes?
I'm so glad you're asking me about this, because the first film I worked on that was digital, and I was very anxious about it, was I went on The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo for David Fincher.
Yeah, some casual director like David Fincher.
Exactly. A very little film.
Doesn't take too many takes. He's just whatever.
I was very anxious about it. We did a camera test in Sweden, and I thought, oh, this is going to be something else. And I'd heard all the makeup artists, many of them were Well, we were nervous because it was kind of embracing technology that we'd never done before. And, speaking to David Fincher the first time, I thought, oh my God, do you know what? I got it. And then, of course, working with Jeff Cronenweth and incredible people, I learned a lot. But the person I learned the most from with digital was Sir Roger Deakins on Skyfall, because again, it was with Daniel Craig. I think that when we did Skyfall, I felt like I learned a lot about the Alexa camera. I learned so much from Team Deakins. I mean, that was a moment I think I'll never forget. Is it sort of was life-changing for me because I learned to embrace digital. And actually, now that I've gone back on certain jobs where film is sort of, back,
right,
I kind of miss it.
You miss film or digital?
Digital. And I never thought I'd ever say that. I cannot believe it. But I miss being able to see the work in the DI with, the DP going, are we doing this right?
Right. And you've got a lot more latitude to change things.
Correct. But also just knowing that I like when you incorporate all kinds of things, but the real collaboration was fantastic. And of course, Daniel's makeup was was a big risk that we took in Skyfall because I made him look pretty beat up for a big portion of the film. And that's not something in the reality of Bond, of Fleming but it worked. And Barbara Broccoli, and they were so supportive. And Sam Mendes, of course. So that made the difference.
He got nothing except beat up in that movie.
That's right.
From the opening scene to the very end of the film.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, that must have been fun for him and you.
Well, I think it was nerve-wracking because there was a moment where I thought, because people start looking and certainly watching in the monitors going, are you sure you want that? And I remember thinking, God, it is, right? You mustn't second guess yourself, but we all do. And I think anybody who says they're sure of it are not so sure. But I was determined, and I think we did the right thing.
Right.
Well, I don't think, I know it. But there are other people who wouldn't have taken that chance. And I thought, it could happen. And there are films you do take a chance, and other times you think, just play it safe. I know when something, I've gone to directors and said, are you sure? Are you sure about this? But I learned to do that with The Fighter, because how are you going to do all those people with a very small crew?
Right.
How do we do that? Make people look that bad.
Well, now we get to Tron ARES, which I think this is the Tron, call it a franchise or an IP now.
Okay.
It's wild that the first Tron came out in early July of 1982. And, at the time, Disney couldn't get big movies into theaters. And that was a huge summer, the summer of E.T., the summer of Blade Runner, the summer of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and Poltergeist. It was a big summer. In a few weeks' time, all these amazing films came out. But Tron kind of went away. Mm-hmm. And then was it 2010, 11, Tron Legacy, 2009? They bring this franchise back from the dead, and you've got Joe Kosinski directing, you have Daft Punk doing the music, and suddenly they resurrect it.
Right.
And then there was talk of making this movie after that, but they never did. They never got around to it. And from what I understand, it was really Jared Leto, who his persistence, he's a huge Tron fanatic and wanted to get the movie made. So did he call you? How did you talked about his relationship you had with him. How did you get involved in Tron ARES? And what were your thoughts about the franchise? And did you go back and you watch the original? If you say no, it's okay.
I'm going to say no.
It's probably for the best.
No, I'll tell the truth because I never lie. And that is actually I'm the youngest of four, and I've got these brown eyes. So if I lie, everybody would catch me. So I thought, just tell them the truth. I did go back and look at it, both of them. And I didn't know a lot about it. And I have had to ask people, particularly Gary, my significant other, and said, can you explain it to me? And so I admit, I think the way and the same with Blade Runner, although Ridley's Blade Runner is one of my favorite films of all time and has been a go-to for so many reference points for me.
Well, the style of it.
The style of it,
it looks
look
timeless.
of it.
It looks like it was shot yesterday.
But I think the problem for me is going back to look at things is I don't want to be too influenced because, for instance, whether it's Denis or, well, anybody I've worked with, is we're doing our own thing. This is the directive, right? And so when Jared, when Emma, his producer, and Jared got in touch with me, are you interested? Are you available? Can we make this? And I met with Justin Springer. We had an incredible, I just want to say, I know we've got this behind us in the film, but it was a movie that made me love, because I haven't loved it for a minute. And I was, we had a really bad few years, didn't we? And, this happened right before the strikes and shutdowns and things, but it made me very excited to put together a hair and makeup team, to work with these great people. Joachim, I'd seen, I don't want to get the title, I knew Kon-Tiki, but his Maleficent, but not Lady in the Water. I don't want to get this, Lady in the Sea.
Yeah.
No, that's an Ibsen play.
No, but yes, it's Lady in the Water's M. Night Shyamalan. That's a different
correct.
one.
So having seen that, and I loved his work, and Kon-Tiki, so I was a fan, but Justin Springer, these were creative producers. Jeff Silver, I've known for many, many years. It was exciting to actually get on a Zoom with people who were really excited about something that I kind of got with it. I'm like, oh, I get it. Sentient, in-grid, out of. I'm like, this is kind of.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you now have to deal with, like in Dune, you had to deal with multiple worlds, different people, races, whatever. In this, you have to deal with real people. And then you have to deal with people, like you said, in-grid. Is that what you called it in the movie?
Yeah, but it's harder. I mean, in a funny way, I remember actually I was talking to Dave Bautista right before I started and saying, there's something kind of challenging, because putting together contemporary looks, I can't speak for Alex Friedberg, our great costume designer, but I always say this, and everybody will probably admit it secretly, it's really hard to do because everyone's an expert on contemporary looks.
Right.
Well, I do it like this. Oh, my mother does this. My father. Yeah, okay. But we still have to make it appealing.
Yeah.
And kind of sexy and appealing. And also, how about this? Cinematic. So it may look this way, but I don't know. Rebecca Ferguson, one of the greatest things about the relationship I had with her is I could say, okay, let's stop for a second. Why don't we not do that and be different? And I learned that with Jake Gyllenhaal when we did Nightcrawler, I think one time he said something to me and we laughed, and I said, let's pretend you're the actor and I'm the makeup artist. Let me do what I do and show you, and then critique it.
And he really went out on a limb on that one.
He certainly did. And
by the end of that movie, he didn't look so good.
Fabulous.
I mean, but at the same time, he looked great because he was inhabiting
That's what we
part.
want. I mean, Emily Blunt said, when I saw her recently, her film is so good, but I ran into her, and I remember one time she called me to work on, I don't know what it was, Girl on a Train. I wasn't able to do it. And she said, let's face it, she said, you're really good at what you do, but you're really good at making people look bad. And I thought, that's the nicest thing anybody said. And she's a gorgeous girl, but that's a high-class problem when you have to work on somebody like Rebecca or Emily Blunt, which is why I always say it's harder to work on men than on women, because typically you do more character work on men.
Right.
Right? And if you're working on something beauty or corrective makeup doesn't get a lot of attention, and it should, because very few people actually can take somebody and do what is transformative from the way they look at 3 o'clock in the morning to what you see, on camera, on screen. And it's very misunderstood, the amount of work on both the men and women of what's actually gone into it.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, from a producerial standpoint, the better the makeup artist is, the less time you might have to spend fixing people in post, just little ways, the corrective, you said corrective nature of it.
Yeah.
And I worked on Superman Returns, and that was the first Panavision Genesis camera. And they had to deal with makeup and fixing the way people looked a lot, because it was a brand new camera technology, and they'd never used it before. And I was in the edit bay, and I was watching, especially makeup stuff and effects stuff. It was really interesting to watch. So to have that skill like you have can be very helpful in the post-production when you've done it right in front of the camera.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it's something that we also don't give ourselves enough credit. And, today we had a meeting, academy meeting for our branch, and it's a few of us, I was in the old days, we used to meet in person, which doesn't happen sadly anymore. But we used to have real camaraderie of people going for coffee or, going to screenings, and which I still go. I mean, just sit in the seat and see the film.
Yeah.
It's kind of great. And I think that the more people talk about it and go, I had no idea he looked like that. I had no idea. Or when I see a film and I go, they really did something there, but I'm not sure what it is. And I'm fascinated. And we start asking each other. So I do think there was a great film. I don't know about great film, but a great makeup on Tilda Swinton on Trainwreck. That was the most transformative makeup I've ever seen on her. And there was no prosthetics involved.
Wow.
It was wig, hair color, dental work, contact lenses. And it was Kira who did that makeup. But I always thought, you see, we didn't hear about it. There was no big fanfare about it, although it was really, so having worked on both sides, and I think that's for me the magic of cinema. You don't have to know everything.
Right.
It brings you back to seeing films as a kid,
So with ARES, how do you differentiate humans from non-human characters?
Well, the thing is, okay, you have so much going on in the film because we've got this, David Seeger, the VFX, you've got Jeff shooting it, Jeff Cronin. I can't be more thankful for being able to collaborate with him because the extreme close-ups in the film. So
you're going back to Dragon Tattoo with him.
Yeah, and the light, I mean, we're talking red, hard red light, blue, the suits, the light cycle. I mean, it's pretty spectacular, but it's all could be overwhelming, and it's sort of a feast for the eyes in terms of light show. It's, so right away you think, what's going to happen to skin tones? Plus you have this very representational cast with Greta and Jodie. A lot of people of many different skin tones, from very light to very dark and everything in between.
Yeah.
How do you, and then make it look sort of fashion interesting, kind of a little ode to Tom Ford, to Gucci, to Alexander McQueen, and then the suits. And so with Jared, I think we did talk about looking perfect. Well, he's already pretty perfect. I think he hates when I say that, but he is, and he has a look that you think, well, what are we going to do with it? Like, what will make it look a bit heightened reality, but based in reality, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so he contour and powders and blush color, like full on, but it made him look kind of a little bit, I don't want to say otherworldly because it's not what it is, but it's different from the way you're used to seeing him. And it was also his skin and not an appliance. So that in itself, I think, was a big undertaking for him to just be himself, but he's not.
Right, of course.
And I must be really careful with that. But he kind of loved it, because once we got into it and we're looking and going to dailies, when I went the very first time, I thought, this is really interesting, because you're doing everything you know and making it all better, and a sort of heightened reality of people. So stronger brows, making the skin flawless. I mean, absolute, which I normally wouldn't do. I would be the guy to say, let that show.
Did you do camera tests?
We did. I think the hardest camera test really, I think on Greta Lee, coming up with the looks for Greta Lee and Jodie Turner-Smith were very challenging. Again, because you're taking two very beautiful women and putting them in light and scenarios which typically would not be the most flattering.
Right.
However, when you work with Jeff, who then says, Donald, come and have a look. Now that doesn't happen very much anymore. And to go and look at what he's doing and see, oh my God. And we were able to work together, and my incredible team, to figure a few things out. And then, of course, when you see it, I mean, her look and her hair and something about her brows makes it really compelling to me, because you have to problem solve without anybody having to know what you went through.
Right.
And that's kind of my thing. I sort of love that.
Did you have to look at how, when you had someone's face, but then they were going to VFX a helmet coming over the top and So did you have to play around with that in pre?
We did. I mean, there was a lot of tests with helmets. It was a lot. I mean, I can't really speak for what they were doing, but it was so technical. There was a lot of a time, just even for ARES, the helmet, visors. Do we actually see the faces?
Right.
This became a whole thing, and I've been through that before, where you think this is not as easy as you think.
It looks like they came up with a great compromise, though, because you can really see people's faces in those visors.
Yes, which then posed the problem for my team, was that means we will have to double people, stunt performers, photo doubles, and they have to be really good. Face replaced or not, that's one thing we still do, is we still prep, which a lot of people don't realize. We're still prepping stunt performers, multiple ones, to be doing different things.
Was a lot of that stuff done, like you've got these light cycles, were there ever practical? I mean, I sat on a practical Tron ARES light cycle.
Right.
I had to take my picture on one, but was there actual physical chases going on, like motorcycle chases?
Oh yeah, they shut down a bridge. I can't remember the name of it. And I mean, little did we know there was 5 or 6 weeks of nights. I didn't see that in the one-liner or the event schedule.
It must have been fun.
But there was a tremendous excitement to sort of do that, because you don't get to work on many films like that anymore. And to have action and these great, stunts and performance and everything combined, it's very exciting.
Yeah, it looked like it was exciting. Now, what about, the real world? You have people like Gillian Anderson.
Yeah.
So had you worked with her before? I'm a huge fan all the way back to the X-Files.
I was excited because I love Sex Education. It's one of my favorite shows.
And she's great in it.
And she's so beautiful. And I think I was a little bit, my key, Sabrina Matera, we talked about this a lot, because I knew there was sort of a variation of, like, what do we do with her? She's always, to me, it's not a criticism, it's far be it for me, but she does tend to always sort of have a soft, she's beautiful. But we were trying to do something, not trying, I think it worked, was a little bit, I know she's played Margaret Thatcher, but a sort of a version of that authority. And when Alex showed me the costumes, then I thought, well, what do we do? It could go so Cruella de Vil. Again, I like to sort of go extreme and then bring it back, but Gillian was great, and we loved her. Camille Friend did her hair, but it was slightly sort of, I don't want to say older looking, but more extreme, maybe a definitive look that she normally doesn't have. She's always had a soft, beautiful look, and that's how we came to get her.
Yeah.
And then Evan Peters, who's just incredible to work with.
An incredible actor who's also a chameleon. The guy can do anything.
Yes. And, designed tattoos for him. We'll have to wait and see. But he was just a tremendous, I hope to work with him again, because he's my kind of actor, put it that way. He's very involved and collaborative and ideas. And that was a lot of fun to text with him. And what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? And these were people that looked at ideas and little things you cut a picture out of a magazine, instead of showing everybody everything on computer or on email, as I show it in person.
Right. It's a little disheartening when you see everything is computer generated these days. You want to see, like, I miss seeing people's pictures, just doing costume and camera tests, when you'd get Polaroids. I worked on a film 25 years ago, and I have the book that has everyone's Polaroids, and it was like,
weren't those great days?
Yeah, the characters' names are scrawled on in pens. Somebody did that, and it's just people standing there.
Yeah,
but
their hands up. Usually
I miss those days. So, was Tron ARES a long shoot for you?
It was. I'm just trying to think now. We did pre-production. We had the strike up. And so we shut down essentially just as I was starting. And I was nervous it wouldn't come back. I don't know what came over me. I had a moment where I thought, is this over?
Well, even as I track things, I too wondered that. I'm like, hey, where did this go? It was going to get made, and then it disappeared for a while. And then they kind of made it clandestinely. There wasn't a lot known about it when it was getting made. Where was the film shot?
In Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
Vancouver, British Columbia, and which I hadn't been to work in BC for 15 years. So it was really great to go back, an incredible cruise. And it was actually a great place to do this film for a lot of reasons. But I think they shot the other one there. I think they did.
Legacy?
Yes, they shot Legacy there.
And of course, the X-Files, so Gillian Anderson was home.
But what great people we had, and to go there. We shot, we did some pickups here in LA. It was really great.
Was there anything particularly challenging on ARES that was different than other films that you'd worked on? Or was it just pretty much, because you worked on so many of these big imaginative films that require...
I think there was a possibility this could have gone, at one point, our director, Joachim, had talked about maybe having scars or little things, to indicate a past of being sort of injured. And that was put to rest. I'm sort of relieved because I think for the schedule we had, for the availability of people, less is more. And, I've really learned this over the years. If you have a statement costume, a suit, helmets, lights, you can't have costume, makeup, and hair elements all working at once. I really believe that. I think it becomes sort of an overkill. I guess, was it Chanel that said, take something off? I believe that to be very true, because if you take all of this, it becomes sort of that Christmas tree you've decorated, and you always stand there. I certainly do, because you don't want to know what it's like putting up a tree at my place. And you look at it and go, no, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. No, that's not good. And that's how I am.
Right. And
so when I see it all, I think it's like, don't put lipstick on her for that. Don't do this. Enough already. And I think there's a kind of a measured quality that I like to see sometimes. And it's very hard with some actors to say, let's just not. And sometimes people will call you back and say, thank you for doing that.
That's a great philosophical place to sort of end this. Now, right. I've got a question for you. One last question for young people. For the young people out there, everybody's using filters, and whenever anybody takes photographs, nothing is real. If you could advise young people who might want to get into makeup effects or the makeup industry, what's something you could tell them about reality, not using Instagram filters?
You have a portfolio that's a real portfolio. Work with I do this with anybody I mentor, or film students and young filmmakers. Have a portfolio. Get a photographer, like barter, go do photo shoots for a photographer, and in return get some prints. Print a portfolio. The difference when somebody sees makeup, hair, costumes in a print, it is like putting a book on your coffee table. It's tangible, it's really beautiful, and it's really great conversation, and it engages people.
Well, Donald, thank you so much.
Thank you
for doing this. It was so great for you to come in, and really cool work that you've done, and I'm such a fan of everything you've worked on.
Really
what a career
that.
You've had.
Thank you.
What, do you have anything coming up?
I'm starting Behemoth for Tony Gilroy, great Tony Gilroy, great cast. We're shooting here in LA starting the end of the month.
What a very cool movie to work on too.
Yeah, it really is, and great people.
Well, thanks for being here again on the Designing Hollywood podcast.
Thanks, Designing Hollywood. Thanks to you and everybody Designing Hollywood. Thank you.
A special thank you to founder and executive producer Martika Ibarra, co-founder, costume designer, the legendary Marilyn Vance, and of course, John Campea from The John Campea Show. Thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tune in to the audio version wherever you listen to podcasts. I am, of course, your host, Robert Meyer Burnett, and you can find me on Instagram at RMBurnett, or find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or on YouTube at PostGeek Singularity. Thanks very much. Like, subscribe, and give us your comments. What would you like to see on the channel? Right down below. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Designing Hollywood.